will take it away.
Thank you. Oh, wait a minute. New year. This is our first meeting for 2025, right? So yay. So, Happy New Year, everybody. I know it's January 7th, but again, Happy New Year, and we're looking forward to 2025. It'll be better than 2024 for sure. All right, thank you.
All right, I'd like to thank you all once again for being here tonight. My name is Robert Pelt. A lot of you who've been in these meetings in the past, you've met me. I've been working on the project for about the last 3 years. I am a professional geoscientist at Jacinto with EPA for about 3 years. I've been working with Ashley and Lauren Paulus up until this point, and also Laura Hunt, who is now on the south. So tonight we're going to kind of just, the idea is just kind of bring you guys up to speed on where we're at. The last year has been very, very busy for the site. We've made a lot of progress. We've moved forward on quite a few things. We'd like to share that with you all and kind of give you a glimpse on where we're headed, or where we think we're headed. So just to kind of go through the things tonight, kind of quick update on the remedial project managers. We've changed from who you're used to. I want to make sure you're clear on who they are so you know who you need to talk to, and so we can get to you and get answers to you. Give you an overview of the site. Obviously, a lot of you know the site, but we just kind of include this for the new folks. And then a brief update on the Southern Impoundment remedial action. And then kind of the meat of the matter, which is the remedial design update on the Northern Impoundments. So for the project managers, on the Southern Impoundment, Laura Hunt's taken over from Lauren Paulus. Lauren Paulus has moved to another position in Region 8. We still have access to her, so we're not losing that knowledge. She's just moved on to a better position for her. And on the Northern Impoundment, there's myself, Robert, I've taken over for Ashley Howard. She is actually very reachable by me, literally. And she's very involved and stays involved in kind of making sure that the consistency from the project history is lost, or anything that we've been doing is lost in the transition. So, but our contact info is up there. We'll put this presentation out on the website. And so my contact info is actually on the website. So point of contact besides myself and the public affairs officer in Janetta. So, site overview. Obviously, Sandy said the waste pits, the site up here, just kind of a general overview of where it's at in relation to Houston, Galveston Bay, the surrounding water bodies and city. And then the site's broken in, excuse me, I'm getting over a bit of a cold. So site's broken up into 3 general areas: the Southern Impoundment, the Northern Impoundments, and the sand separation area. Primarily tonight we're going to talk about the Northern Impoundments. The sand separation area is included in the design for the Northern Impoundments, but the big focus really is on the Northern Impoundments itself. So background, site was built in the mid-60s for disposal of paper mill wastes. They both cover about 15 acres each, contaminated with dioxins and furans, which are the primary contaminants. And then since the RIP have been added to the National Priorities List in 2008. Oh, excuse me. And then for the remedy, the chosen remedy from the ROD, which is a record decision, is the removal of the waste in Northern and Southern Impoundments for removal off-site disposal. And this is to prevent releases during excavation, which you'll hear this word BMP a lot, which really means it's best management practice. It's the wall we intend to build around the containment, the area we're working in the Northern Impoundments. And that's to prevent material from getting released into the river during these activities. So, Southern Impoundment. As you all know, there's a lot of work happened starting in 2022 on the Southern Impoundments. And all through last year, up until this last summer, they were doing a lot of excavation work. And you can see here, we talk about the Southern Impoundments. It's broken up into 2 sections. Kind of the southernmost area and then this little northern bit. It's separated by the barge facility, the barge manufacturing facility there. So timeline for it, the ROD, record decision, was issued in 2017. The design, or the remedial design administrative settlement agreement order, and this is a legal order that establishes that they have to produce the design, was entered into in 2018. May 2021, the amended Southern Impoundment 100% remedial design, RD, was submitted. September 2021, the EPA issued a remedial action unilateral administrative order compelling the PRPs to begin implementing the design and begin the work. In 2021, the work plan that was associated with the design was approved. In May 2024, the RA construction was completed. Now, that does not mean that the action is completed. There's still a few things that need to be done, but the construction, the digging and hauling has been completed, the backfilling is done. And in August 2024, we received the draft report, annual action report, and this basically describes everything that they've done and brings in all the data and all the information into one source for review. So this is what the southern remedial action consisted of. Field activities obviously were completed in May of 2024. And to that extent, they were going to take longer, but the EPA compelled the PRPs to work through the hurricane season if possible. And they did that, and they were able to shave about 6 months to 8 months off the completion time by not shutting down and deloading from the site. During that time, they removed over 150,000 tons of impacted material, which was transported and disposed of off-site at licensed landfills. That equates out to just over 9,000 truckloads of material left the site. 13,000 truckloads of clean fill were brought back in, backfilled and compacted and vegetated on the site to restore it. Over 1 million gallons, 1.4 million gallons exact, of treated water were collected and treated. And then this involved over 100,000 man-hours of labor. This is a significant undertaking. And then the administrative activities were basically they generated the remedial action report, which we discussed, and then they began work on institutional controls. And, excuse me. So things that are left, basically, that we're working on now are completing the review of the remedial action report. And then this will be posted to the website. It's currently in a draft form, but we are going to post the draft to the website so that the community can look at it and see where it's going. We have started receiving comments from some of the other reviewers. We're just kind of working through the final corrections and changes and requests that we need to have the report finalized. And then preparation of institutional controls. So what these are legal documents attached to the property that prohibit its use for certain things or prohibit activities occurring below 10 feet, which is the depth at which the remediation occurred, and making requirements on how material that's generated below 10 feet is handled within the area that's been remediated. So that's a legal, that involves lots of attorneys and there's several properties involved, and so there's a lot of back and forth on that. But that is actually, as according to the ROD, that is part of the ROD as a requirement that has to be done as part of the remedial action for it to be complete. So until those are done, the action will not be officially complete. So now, the remedial design update. Last time we spoke to you all, I think we were in the process of looking to see if we could get an independent design review. That process did not work out. The EPA instead decided that we were going to take a much stronger enforcement stance on the project. And so in January, we sent them notification that the 90% design, which had been submitted the previous year, was seriously deficient. And that letter is posted on the website. You all can see the deficiencies that it cited. And then in 2025, per the order that the design was being performed under, the RP submitted a response. They included a plan on how they intended to address the deficiencies that were identified by the EPA in our letter from January 2024. The EPA reviewed these plus the plan, and on April 18th, 2024, we sent in a response to the RPs stating that the plan to address the deficiencies in was substantial. It substantially addressed some of the deficiencies, but was also acceptable, and that they could continue to work under the order. And then in July 17, they submitted per the agreement on the 18th, that letter which gave them 90 days to submit. They submitted a 100% deliverable design to the EPA for review. We solicited comments from the community, the stakeholders, and we took those plus our own comments. And on October 15th, we submitted our comments to them and gave them 30 days to respond. Actually, a little bit more than 30 days thanks to the holidays. And on November 25th, we received a revised 100% deliverable, we're reviewing now to see how well they've addressed those comments. Those have been posted to the public website. They've also been distributed to the stakeholders and THEA as well, who we received comments from. And at this point in time, everybody's reviewing it. And that's, so we're waiting on, everybody who's reviewing it. It's a very large document, as the folks who looked at it will testify to, so it does take a little bit of time to churn through it. So, and that's where we're kind of at the process on that. So, obviously, like I said, a lot occurred since the last time we spoke to you. So the summary of the 2024 notification was basically, we noted that there was serious deficiencies, and it was not, although the section it's quoted and coming from uses the words EPA work takeover, what it is this notification, it was notification to the PRPs that if they did not address these deficiencies, the EPA could take over the order. But underneath the order, the agreement we have with them, they have the right to try and remedy those deficiencies, which is what they did. And so the notice focused on a group of serious deficiencies, some of which were, the fact that they kept a capping remedy in, which is not allowed by the ROD. some discussion about technologies that they didn't want to use for one reason or another, and just kind of basically calling them out and saying, like, look, you know, we've talked about this for years, you need to move forward with this or we will. So, like I said, notice focus on serious deficiencies that were not in compliance with the requirements of the RD settlement and the ROD, and was not meant to be an exclusive list of issues and concerns with the 90% RD. So we did provide, later on when we provided our response, we noted the fact that they did make substantial improvements, some of which were, they revised the excavation surfaces. And a lot of folks who looked at the design, a lot of stakeholder comments on the design indicated that they were leaving material of the ROD specified 30 nanograms per kilogram of dioxin in place, and that was not in accordance with the ROD. So they basically changed the basic excavation surfaces so that they encapsulate and remove all the inventory material that's been identified. So that was a significant move on their part. Removing the capping from the consideration. We pretty much put our foot down on this. The ROD does not allow for it. We've had numerous discussions about it, and they got the message and they took it out. And then also in response to, and this is a lot of this is very much response to the community, we're addressing storms, overtopping of the containment, barge strikes, scouring around the containment that's installed, and heave within the area. How is heave going to be addressed? And I won't get too technical on it, but heave is basically where when you unload the surface and there's water and the sand underneath that will actually come to the surface and basically boil out and collapse excavations. So we asked, you know, in our thing, we said, you know, you all need to address this. They presented their plans on how they're going to do this, or at least a framework on how that's going to work. And then the other issues that needed to be addressed or remained to be addressed were, you know, coordination with TxDOT. You know, we've all talked about the fact that the I-10 expansion is going to happen. How's that going to interact with the site? You know, there's a lot of talk about, you know, right-of-way access, roads, who's where, who has what. Water management. How's the water from the containment going to be managed? You know, confirmation sampling. How are we going to confirm that they've done the work that they said they're going to do? And then finally, the sand separation area. You know, there's a lot of questions about the sand separation area in terms of they proposed a plan to collect some more samples and then just be done with it. We're like, no, you've got to have to do a lot more than that. And then underneath the record policy, you know, the circle policies with 5-year reviews, they're going to have to look at it every 5 years. As long as there's material there, they have to keep looking at it every 5 years. So we're very clear that they had to accommodate that in their plan as well. So, in summary, you know, excuse me, kind of just went through all this again, but the plan and other information provided with RPs provided a sufficient basis so that they acknowledged that they listened to what we told them that had to happen, and they acknowledged that yes, they were going to try and move forward with those things, and they removed a lot of language from the design that were basically impediments or roadblocks to the work occurring. We provided a substantial set of comments to the 90%, and in this case, we provided direct copies of not only EPA's comments, additional information on the deficiencies, but we also directly provided comments from the stakeholders to them that were given as well. So usually when we do this, the EPA reviews the comments, we consolidate them, because we do get a lot of the same comments from the reviewers. And so we try and work to make it very clear so we don't wind up at odd purposes with each other. And so this time we went ahead and said, no, here's all the comments so they can see how this was affecting the project and what we were really looking to get out of it. We gave them 90 days to submit it, and then during that time frame they had to provide to show that they were committed to the process. They had to provide packages of portions of the design at 30, 60, and then finally the complete package at 90 days. And so this was to make sure, like, you know, a lot of times, you know, as you all have seen in the past, things go silent for a long time because we're negotiating, we're talking about something to get a chance to revise it. We wanted to make sure that it was very clear that this is not a delay, this is not a chance to drag this process out. We want to make sure that we're making progress so that when we got to the end of it, it wasn't an issue of we need 90 more days, we need 50 more days, or whatever. And they met those goals. They submitted what they were supposed to. In some cases, they even came back and revised some of the earlier ones based upon, you know, discussions and some revisions based on some changes that they made to meet some of the other requirements we asked for. And so for those of you who reviewed the submittals, if you look at the 30-day and 60-day submittals, you may find that there's some differences in them versus what was in the 100% and then what's in the revised 100%. So, where are we at now? So on July 17th, the RP submitted the 100% remedial design deliverable. It included improvements presented, and it included all the improvements that they stated they were going to make in their January plan. They added a few new things. Once again, this is not new removal of the capping for consideration. but also pre-excavation sampling to refine the excavation surfaces. And what they want, the goal of that is if you look at the plan, is they want to drill down and get to where they expect the clean surface to be at, and then collect samples so that when they get out there, they don't have to stop. That they can just get in there and move as quick as possible to minimize risk, and minimize release, and also have that cleanup happen quicker. One of the items that we're still discussing is how confirmation sampling is going to tie into that process. They said remove the capping thing. They added and updated additional plans to address storms, overtopping, barge strikes, and scour and heave. One of the major things, which I don't know if anybody here really noticed, is that overtopping. The PRPs have been a significant study about flood stages in the river. And primarily, 90%, 99% of the flood stages in the river are about 10 feet or less at the site. There are, hurricanes. Nobody can account for a hurricane, in terms of building this containment and having to be safe. But what they did do is they upped the wall height as a direct way to deal with that. So, and then they also provided scour protection, and then heave was one of the things that they claimed was causing an issue with, we can't work in this area because of heave. And they've included basically that they will work to mitigate heave or different techniques that they can use, but a lot of that may be left up to the contractor who performs the work on how exactly they implement that activity. But the idea there is heave is no longer a roadblock. It's just something that has to be managed, identified, and dealt with as the work happens. And then a big one is historically, if you looked at the designs and stuff like that, there was a lot of talk in the original designs and stuff that came out that they couldn't treat the water, all the water, a lot of the water they were talking about. Well, now with what they've learned on the south, they've tweaked the water treatment system, and now all the water that gets pumped out of the BMP, the wall around the site that's built, is going to be run through the water treatment system. So that's a significant change from past activities. I'm sure you all remember that historically there was talk that we were going to pump the water out every year, because they're going to open the containment up for the hurricane season. That's gone away, and so now they're basically going to manage the water inside the containment year-round throughout the process until they're done. We made the July design available to the public through the website. As I said, we received comments from the stakeholders. I think we turned in, it's like 150 to 300 different comments. It's a significant body of comments. Gave them till November, like right before Thanksgiving, November 21st to turn them in. And they were, we stuck to our guns on that. We're like, yep, this is your time frame. And then, they submitted that to prepare the next. So our comments on the July 100%, basically, some of the comments, and this is a summary kind of like thing. We talked again about water management. There's still some ambiguity, excuse my language there, about the water management. We want to be very clear what contact water is, non-contact water is, and then deep and pre-activity water is. So it's very clear what the water is, so we understand exactly how it's going to be handled and run through the system, and as the process moves along, how that water is going to be managed and handled and minimize potential. Addressing potential for hydraulic heave. How are they going to monitor for this, and then what are they going to, they have to provide a framework for the contractor who does the work on how does this be addressed. And so what's that framework going to be, how's that going to work exactly, what are those options going to be? Because there is numerous different ways to deal with heave. It just depends on the contractor and the equipment they use to perform the work, which methods they use. Pre-excavation sampling, confirmation sampling. If you read the initial submittal, 100%, they wanted to call it confirmation pre-excavation, pre-excavation confirmation sampling. No, it's not confirmation sampling, it's delineation. So we're still figuring out exactly how confirmation sampling works, because there are areas that, just for safety reasons and some other stuff, that we may not be able to collect a confirmation sample that may do that, but we're figuring out the best way, and we're looking at technologies that they can use to meet that requirement. Barge strike protection. This was a new one, and they submitted a design for barge strike protection. For those of you who looked at the design, it's going to be a series of pylons driven in with bumpers that go up 12 feet, so 2 feet above the top of the BMPs. And they're designed to deflect or steer barges away that are going to hit. That was a comment that we got in the 100% review, was there was some concern about the fact that these poles, the pylons that are going to be driven in, aren't going to be strong enough to stand up to a barge. And so that one of the comments was they need to reevaluate that and look at that. Implementation of the M&R remedy for the sand separation area. As we talked about, they proposed a limited sampling arrangement where they were going to do, I think, 1, 2, 5 years and then be done, where that's not acceptable. I mean, we're leaving material, the sand separation area remedy is basically natural recovery, which means the material will be left in place and then sedimented over, and that has to be monitored. You can't just assume that 5 years worth of data is going to justify that for a river system that's dynamic as the San Jacinto. So, and then finally, continued coordination with TxDOT. That is going to be an ongoing process. You know, it's not going to stop until, our coordination with TxDOT won't stop until probably both projects are completed. Because even after, if we get done before they do, we still need to coordinate with them to make sure that they don't disturb the remedy. And then also, if they get done before us, we need to make sure that we can still work in the space. And there may be some overlap and some work that carries on somebody's part to fix up the thing. Primarily the issue with that is the barge strike protection for the I-10 bridge corridor. And so they're currently, we've met with TxDOT a couple times to discuss that. And their engineering, and the PRP engineers, our engineers, and their engineers are all looking at how this can work and how everybody can work in the same space successfully. But a big portion of that is going to be is that once both projects begin, there's going to be probably a significant amount of coordination, like probably weekly levels of coordination, not daily in some cases, coordination as the work continues, because we are going to both be kind of working in the same space to some extent. So after we gave all those comments, they came back with revised 100%. Once again, we provided copies, put them up on the website, and we're currently reviewing it, so I really can't talk too much about our take on, you know, how they've addressed the comments to date. You know, right? We do still understand, and we'd like for you all too to understand that there are some comments that are going to be an evolving process. You know, because obviously TxDOT and us, we need to work together, and so there will be portions of the design that may change a little bit. The fundamentals of the design, the BMP and stuff like that, those are pretty much fixed in place. But there may be some considerations and some changes that have to happen in terms of coordinating the workspace. Because as our design moves forward, if it does, you know, once it's acceptable, if it moves forward, you know, then we have to work with TxDOT on how those two designs are going to mesh, you know, and how they're going to interact with us and how we're going to interact with them. There may be a little give and take on everybody's part to different portions of, you know, access or, you know, how things are moved around, trucking, you know, odds and ends. But in general, the containment, which is the primary driver, the BMP, is pretty much set and everybody's agreed on it. And it seems like we're moving forward with that. And that's the basic foundation of what will become the basis of the design when it's implemented. So what's next? I'm sure this is what everybody really wants to know. So continuing activities, obviously, continuing coordination with TxDOT, and then I did not put it on here, but we'll also continue coordination. We have to coordinate with the Coast Guard, we have to coordinate with Harris County, we have to coordinate with multiple agencies as the work happens, because this work will be occurring in several jurisdictions, regulatory-wise, and so we need to make sure that everybody is being communicated with and that everybody's on board with what has to be done. Obviously, the Coast Guard at this point they don't really care about the design, they care about the ship channel, what's going to happen at the barge channel. And so a lot of what they want to know won't be of concern until the design is finalized or the project's initiated. Finalization of the design, and I have this underneath the TxDOT thing, because TxDOT still has some tweaks, and we have some, and some of the stuff that we're going to do for the northern impoundments will impact and be incorporated into their design. One of the key ones on that is you all are aware we're putting a wall in right along what we call the southern DMP portion of the wall, which is next to the interstate. And TxDOT has been in discussion with us about potentially leaving a portion of that wall in place, cutting it off below what we call the mud line, which is below the surface, and then leaving it in place. And so TxDOT is working out that if we do that, what does that mean to their process? And also, once again, those barge strike protection structures, how will that impact how they're placed and how they're set up? Next is the project overlap, obviously, use of the road. You know, we both need to share that space, but one of the things that we're really trying to clarify is making sure that both parties completely understand what the road requirements are going to be, which portion of the road that we really need to use for what we want to do, and how does that interact with what TxDOT wants to use the road for. And then also access road, which is one of the things that the PRPs have built into the design to help limit that. Currently, I think if you've all seen the site, there's like a one-lane road that runs from the gate down towards, you know, the little isthmus of land that's out there. Well, in order to allow truck traffic to go both ways, they're going to make the access road wider, and so that it can carry trucks both ways, so that we don't have to limit activities as much by saying, okay, you got a flagger down here stopping trucks, going this way and that way. And also there may be points at which, as part of the TxDOT plan, that they shut the site down for a month potentially for lifting heavy beams and stuff, and where there's just no way you can have trucks working in that area with them lifting 50, 60-foot spans of concrete up over the roadway. And then the final one is this, like I talked about before, is the barge striker protection. Obviously, we don't want a barge impacting the impoundment, so we have our own barge striker protection, but TxDOT doesn't want a barge impacting the new bridge. And so we have to, that's a big point of coordination, is how are the two projects going to allow for that work to happen? How will that be staged or staggered? And, and what kind of accommodations will be made and how that's done. So obviously next up is continued coordination with the stakeholders and keeping them up to date on what's going on, seeking their opinions and advice on the design, and any decisions are made. Obviously there'll be additional copies as things move up, as the design moves forward and then the contractor selected. There will be updates to some of these additional plans and appendices, and those will be put out for review. They just don't get to make those plans. Those will still be reviewed. They'll still go through the process, commenting, direction given and such. And then we're hoping to have, this is the next big one, is the completion review in November of the revised RD. We're hoping at this point to have comments back in from all the responsible parties, all the reviewers, stakeholders by mid-February to late February, and then hopefully have out the response to that by March to latest. That is what we're shooting for. That's a lot, depends on the level of comments and how much, if there's additional tweaking or things that we can allow to be adjusted, like we did on the south, where there's like an amendment to, or like I think it was 2 amendments to the 100% RD in the south that were designed to address additional information that turned up because of sampling. And then finally, this is the key one, finalizing the 100% RD. Once we've reached, if we can successfully get to this point and the PRPs can successfully produce an acceptable design, we finalize the design, and that ends the RD phase of the project. At which point, we move into implementation. Now, my attorneys have asked me to say this. The EPA has 3 options to implement a remedial action under the Superfund statute. One is a judicial consent decree negotiated with potentially responsible parties. The second one is issue a Superfund unilateral administrative order, which is where we compel them to do the work. And that's what happened on the south. And then implement a federal Superfund project using fund money, which would be government money paying for the remediation. Each option has a lot of considerations that go into it, and the Superfund program aims to have responsible, and the ultimate goal of the Superfund is to have responsible parties pay for and perform the remedial action work rather than using taxpayer funds to do this work. So now once there's an enforcement instrument in place, we've been talking with them and the engineers. Once that enforcement order is in place, there won't be yellow iron out at the site the next day. Some of the stuff that has to be ordered may take up to a year to get some of the steel in place. Ideally, as we move through that process, hopefully that can get sped up. But it may take up to 1 or 2 years of additional planning, contracting, and approvals before on-site construction begins. But then once that activity begins, the current plan shows it taking about a year to build the containment and get it drained, and then depending on how successful the pre-excavation sampling is, right now they're saying 5 years of excavation, but it could potentially be shortened to up to 3 years. And then about another year to decommission the BMP structure. So that's I wish I could give you guys a much better time frame on that, but some of these factors are, some of them they involve parties outside the EPA, and so I can't really speak on behalf of those folks. So not a lot of figures, not a lot of super technical details, but questions?
Okay, guys. Thank you, Robert, for that presentation. We do appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to get to the question, but just to let folks know how it's going to go, since we have a lot of folks and we know we have a lot of questions, and we hope we have a lot of answers. But before we get started with the questions, for those that are inquiring about receiving information that EPA sends out, we typically use our site mailing list for notification for the meetings. So it includes channel view. So tonight, if you sign the sign-in sheet and only put your name on there and you did not receive a notice for this meeting, you still won't receive a notice for this meeting because you only put your name down. So we need your address. So
For those that put their name only, please stop back by and put your address so you can receive the notice. But we try to update our mailing list as frequently as possible. So please help us out to make sure that the community receive the notifications when we have these types of meetings, because we want you to be engaged, included, and participate in these community meetings. So what we'll do for the questions, we're going to go down the aisles to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to ask a question that desire to do so. So some may have 2 or 3 questions, but we hope that we can get to everyone. So if you got 2 or 3 questions or 4 or 5 questions, please allow us to get around to everyone in the room, and we'll just keep zigzagging back and forth to make sure that everyone question is asked. And we'll try to give you an answer, not the once upon a time story, but a direct question to a direct answer to your questions, okay? So is everyone okay with that? Nod your head, yes, okay. So let's do this. Let's go with the front row. And if you don't have a question, that's okay. And if you don't want to ask a question, raise your hand. We'll get a piece of paper to you to write your question down, and then we'll ask the question for you. Not all of us as vocal as others, so we do understand that. So, and if you have a question that you do not want to ask in this setting, by all means reach out to Robert or our manager over here, Chris Valeria, or myself, or our stakeholders, and we will get those questions answered for you. So, let's get started. We'll go down the front row here. No, no, no? Okay. We only have 1 microphone, guys, so we apologize for that. So, I have an outdoor voice. Not everyone have that voice, but we'll pass the mic, okay?
My question is, what is the target date for ending the review and making a decision on implementation?
As I said, we hope to have that completed. We want to get the stakeholder comments. Obviously, we value the stakeholders and the community comments that we get through FIA on this process. So we want to make sure that they all have sufficient time to read the document. We're hoping to have that portion to receive that by February, and then we still have to look at their comments. As we did on the last batch, we want to make sure that we're being very consistent and concise on how we look at these and make sure that they're being addressed. We have found in some cases that things are addressed, and we have to go back to the PRBs and say, they've addressed it, but they haven't been clear about it, right? So we would be hopefully in a position to make that judgment by March, the end of March. So.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Okay, let's go down the road here. You got it?
Hey, Robert. Brian.
Yep.
So, I know you said you didn't really want to get into the technical minutiae tonight. I'll respect that if you really don't want to. But,
I guess, got a question? Go ahead and ask.
So, one of the things, since we've gotten the documents in December, those being the revised 100% RD documents, one thing that we've noted is that you said that all the water that's going to be leaving from the BMP area is going to be treated. That's obviously very positive. But it looks like it's going to be broken down into 2. It's non-contact and contact water, and that's going to have 2 different treatment regimes, with contact water being treated more vigorously than non-contact water.
Yes, there's a couple filtering stages that are additional in that process, and that's in there because and when we say, because one of the ideas behind this, and that's why we're being very strict about what is contact water and how is it managed, and what is non-contact water, and how are you managing it so it doesn't become contact water, right? And so the idea is that, non-contact water is like rainwater that falls in your yard, right? Your yard hopefully is clean, and the water runs to the street, so there's no requirement for anybody to sample that. If the rain falls onto a facility that processes something, they may have a stormwater permit that requires that they test that water and they hold it, they treat it before they discharge it to make sure it meets the surface water discharge requirements of the state of Texas. And so the idea here is that the water that we know is contaminated, right? And that's why I get into that definition is no, right? So there's no unknown. So if it's like the water is known to be contaminated, we should probably be saying the water is known not to be contaminated. It's demonstrated that it's not impacted. It goes through the lighter treatment train, which should knock out, I won't say should, but will knock out it's designed to knock out loose sediments and stuff like that. So the water will actually probably be taking stuff out that we really that wouldn't be of a concern. But they're being very cautious about that design. And then it's water that definitely has come in contact with or has potential I will stress that highly. Potential to come in contact with impacted material goes to the more stringent treatment train, and also gets held in tanks. All the water will be held, all that water, all that contact water will be held in tanks after it's treated, tested like they did on the south. And then once they have the test data to say that it meets the discharge requirements, it'll be discharged.
So just to be totally clear, the non-contact surface water, that's also going to be put into a tank and then sampled at that point?
No, the non-contact water doesn't get any sampling at this point.
Okay.
So it will go through the system and be direct discharged. But based off the way things work on the south, and that's something we're still looking at. I know on the south, but before they discharge any water, they held all the water, because the permit and the design does allow for them to direct discharge in emergency situations. But that is only based on the fact that they have a significant body of testing to show that the treatment system is working like it's supposed to work before the water is discharged.
So, sorry. The non-contact water, it is going to get filtered for solids, though. Did I hear you say that?
Mm-hmm.
And the EPA is comfortable with that, just testing it for solids? You feel that that's like an appropriate remedy? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, but once again, too, that is based on the fact that the water has no potential for contact with the basin.
Because there will be an adequate margin of safety.
Thank you.
And part of that will really be driven by, as the remediation happens, they clean the surface off. The idea is to keep water from flowing onto the clean surfaces from the contaminated areas, because obviously nobody wants to go through the effort of removing all that material and just have it put clean material down and have it be recontaminated.
So, with the south impoundment construction being completed there, when will it begin the 5-year review process?
It has already begun.
Okay, so
The first 5-year review it starts from the date that significant construction began. So I think that was in 2022, 21. So yeah, I think we figured it was going to be in 2027 is when that report will be published. So that work will happen, we're going to start happening. And as part of that, there's community interviews, there's reviews, we go through the permit requirements, everything like that. But it also will include the northern impoundment and the sand separation area. It includes it doesn't break out part of the site. The 5-year review is for the site as a whole. So when you see that first couple of reviews, you're going to see it's not as rosy as it should look, because there's still material that needs to be addressed. So.
because Harris County Pollution Control Services likes to comment on the
Oh, yeah, no, yeah, definitely. Like I said, stakeholders and everybody gets a chance to comment, and so does the community. There's usually a community component of it. So there's community interviews that occur.
All right, second row. Anyone here? Second row? Nope. Okay.
I'd just like to know how long after the remediation project is complete will the water in that area be treated? Is there a continuous monitoring for any period of time just to confirm there's no leaching or anything coming out of the site? Is there any established term for that?
I mean, part of that would be covered. The idea is that for the northern common, it's clean. Right? So, but the 5-year review, purpose of the 5-year review thing is to identify conditions that are changing at the site that may result in additional activities need to be performed.
Okay, so that's what the review period should hold.
And that happens
incremental.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
and
you.
that happens until there's no, like the sand separation areas there. That's going to happen.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, remember guys, if you don't want to ask a question openly, raise your hand and we'll get you a card or a piece of paper or something to write your question down on. Okay? All right.
Interstate 10 is going to be redone, building a new bridge over San Jacinto River. When is all that starting, and how's that going to affect the cleanup?
I cannot speak for TxDOT on their schedule. And so that is why I talked about coordination as a key for this project. Obviously, they know what the Superfund site is and what's going to happen there. They have shared their plans with the public on what the design should look like. Until they let their contracts and they start their work, until we get to a design that we can implement, it's hard to say, what that schedule is going to look like, how long their work's going to take, when our work will finish, and how those two projects will interact. And so they'll be. Okay.
I think the current.
Speak loud, please. Let's get a microphone.
my memory holds up, the current letting date is September 2027. However, they haven't secured all the funding, so the commission wants it done soon because the old bridge was struck and damaged and all that. So we're aiming for September 2027 letting, and then it would start a little later. That is the current schedule, but I can't say it will change. It's a massive rebuild from Magnolia Avenue to Thompson Road, a lot of additional lanes, some managed lanes added. So that's our current plan.
Excuse me, do you mind identifying yourself? Is that
Sure.
to ask?
Jeannie Giovanni, I am the TxDOT PM. I work with the consultant and the intermediary. The main designer is LJA Engineers.
Thank you for that response. We appreciate it.
And I'd like to say hi, Jeannie. I've never met you in person.
Thank you, Jeannie. Thank you.
The real question I have is that whenever they start, whatever the 2027, whenever it is, are we going to require testing? Because, we're only taking, 10 foot off the south?
On the south, now that has already been kind of discussed a bit. The institutional controls and TxDOT is aware of the footprint of the previous work. So,
When you get to me, I'll have a question on that, but I'll wait my turn.
so
I'm just concerned about when they start driving and digging out for pilings and all that junk, it's going to be going farther down and we require them to clean. That's what I'm worried about.
So yeah, and I mean, from our perspective at other sites where we've had construction activities come through and occur at those same locations, typically we notify the folks that are doing it, and that's part of the institutional controls also. They identify those areas, they set forth a set of guidelines on what has to be done in those areas. Soil management, sampling, you just can't take that soil and dump it someplace else, right? But that's part of their risk management as well. I can't speak for what they're going to do with their contractors to make that happen. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next. He's shame on you. Shame on you.
Hey, that's the beauty of asking the questions and working together. I mean, that's the beauty of it. But thank you for stealing this question. So there you go. There you go. Okay. No. Okay. Let's go. Third row. Okay.
Hello, my name is Pamela Bonta. I have actually a two-part. So my issue is, and I've watched a few Superfund sites while they were being remediated, and the protective gear is not up to snuff to protect the people that are out there doing the work, even your own EPA people. I've seen divers go in on the edge of the dioxin and take samples, and I hope they're not sick now. This was several years ago, but when you come in contact with that, it is the deadliest chemical known to man. There needs to be some protection for the workers, all those men out there that have no idea what they're on and digging in maybe, perhaps. So I would like to see protection, clothing protection, whatever it takes to protect the divers, the police that have responded to a truck going into the side of the pit. Sheriff Garcia was on the bridge was shut down. I said, what are you sending all those men into that water for? It's a deadly body of water. He didn't even have any idea. He pulled his guys out, but then within a couple hours, they sent those guys right back into water. So I have a big issue with that, seeing that my family has been affected by this water. When the barges go by, they dredge that stuff up every day. Every year that goes by, another storm comes through and rips that cap up, which is, the cap is a joke anyway if you've seen what it's made. It's a permeable piece of foam. So half of that's gone from the storms to begin with. But every year that it takes longer, more of that goes down out into Galveston. So with that being said, I would like to see some type of protection for the people that are working there. Also, when those trucks are leaving, who's protecting the road where all the dirt the dioxin dirt is going on to get those trucks to wherever they're going, or the barges to wherever they're going. There needs to be oversight on how they're leaving, and make sure that the people on the outside that live down the road, like several people in here that live in Channelview, that they're not going to be sludging through dioxin in the road, and if it rains and it spills over onto their land, that's not okay. And enough about that. My other thing I would like to ask is, you keep talking about filtering the water. I am a filtration expert, and my question to you is, what are you filtering? What are you using to filter? So if you're going to filter out dioxin, you're going to need certain types of things, filters, to filter all of that out, heavy metals. So my question is, what are you using to filter?
Okay, so first off, I can't address what you've seen happen at other sites or what's happened in the past, okay? This is a Superfund site. The work that happens there will be performed under OSHA regulations, okay? We do not enforce OSHA. That is a different government agency. OSHA has requirements for people that work at hazardous waste sites, hazardous material sites, Superfund sites, all right? The contractor who's selected to do the work, they are responsible for producing a plan that has that happen, okay? So, second, you know, you talk about, you asked a lot in that first question. OSHA basically drives the requirements. Like I am OSHA 40-hour certified, so that and anybody who works there should go through this training so that they can identify what has to be done, but also their employer has to have a plan on how they address these issues, knowing what the chemicals are, what protections required, right? So there's a whole body of work that goes into that. And like I said, I can't say anything about what you've seen historically. I wasn't there, so I can't really speak to those issues. As far as the trucks are concerned, the trucks fall into the same realm, okay? The trucks will be transporting a waste, right? What that waste is will be determined before it's moved off of the site. That requires that certain procedures be taken, right? The waste can't be shipped off site if it's sloppy. So it has to be solidified, it has to be made bulky so that it can be moved off site, right? The truck beds have to be lined, they have to be covered. There's a whole series of regulations that whoever does that work is going to have to comply by for that work to happen. Now, if you've seen other sites, there are materials that you're allowed to ship that contain lead, other toxic substances, that the shipping rules allow for them to be shipped in a certain manner, right? It may not look like what you think it should look like, but but they have to do that. They have to follow the rules that are there, and those rules are enforced by their DOT. The local police departments have the right to enforce rules about shipping and such. The local environmental folks can do that, right?
Well, how come I've not seen
I can't speak
anything in place when your divers jumped in a few years ago? They were not protected.
They were protected. Obviously.
We have film of them.
Every time we send an EPA employee to the field, they have to have a health and safety plan. It should be by me, it should be by a health and safety officer every time they go out. So there's a plan in place.
So when you send the diver in the water, into the sludge to take a sample, you're saying they're safe?
That was an EPA environmental sampling team. And they have training, they go to Florida for specialized training to deal with hazardous waste divers. It's a very specialized field. It takes a lot of training to be able to be a diver. And they're aware of the waste, they're fully encapsulated. Every inch of their body's covered with the suit. It's a lot of training.
Because I did not see every inch of the body covered.
Those people that were divers for us, they went through extensive training to be certified to do hazardous waste divers. It's very specialized.
Okay, because people will be watching, but my other question is, what are you filtering with? When you're filtering out dioxin, there's only certain things that are going to pull that out of the water.
In this case, dioxin tends to bind to sediment. It doesn't really move in solution now, okay? And so the process is to remove the sediment from the water. And then, it goes through a series of filters. I'd have to look at the plan. I am not an engineer, I'm a geologist. So I will not delve into the water, the technical side of the water stuff that is in the plan. It has been reviewed by people that's their job.
And we've done it for the southern.
And it was done on the southern side.
4 million gallons were treated on the
They have testing data that shows that it was effective.
It's very effective. That's why we're able to do more in the north because of what we learned on the southern, how effective it was. We have a lot of data from what just happened last year on the south. for water treatment.
So you might want to look into coconut husk, because that is something that gets the dioxin. We have a filtration company that's worked with this town for the last 15 years. And the coconut husk, through our testing at ALS Global, has proven to get the dioxin as well as 2,000 other types of chemicals out. So I'm just, with that being
Well,
said.
and it is I would like to stress it is the PRT is the design, so they get to choose the media that gets used.
Well, I hope they choose the right one.
Well, the data from the South seems to indicate that they did. So,
Thank you.
you also talked about the cap, okay?
Yeah.
The cap is actually extremely durable, and you talk about it getting washed away. Every time there's a major flood event, the cap undergoes a bathymetric survey to determine if there's been any damage to the cap. If they find areas that have changed elevation, they probe it. What we have found with the cap is that it's actually accumulating sediment from the river from elsewhere. It's building up in areas. So we actually find that, and I think, Jackie, you may remember back when they dumped a whole bunch more rock on the eastern side by the channel. They found some scour occurring there. There's some concerns about that. And so they dumped a lot more rock into that area. On the west side, we're seeing sediment. I think we're seeing up to 12 feet of sediment accumulation there. So the cap consists of what they call it, it's a ticker. It's a concrete mat that's overlaying a geomembrane, geoliner membrane. So
In the storms, a lot of that gets ripped up.
we have not, I don't think in the last, after the last storm, in the site, the reports are published to the site, they perform these bathymetric surveys, and you can see where they go out and they check the integrity of the cap, and if there's something wrong with it, they have to fix it. So.
All right, guys, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, let's go down. We've got a lot more folks here. Okay. Nope. Okay, let's go over here. Anyone here? No. Okay, let's go down on the end. Okay, you're next, Jackie. Just get ready. Okay.
I think you're going left to right or right to left?
Well, I'm going this way. Right?
Okay.
All right, Lisa Gossett, and I want to say thank you for giving plenty of advance notice for this meeting. And not to everybody, but at least it was scheduled well ahead of time. I did get a postcard at least a couple of weeks ahead of time. I see it has had some media coverage, but I find absolutely nothing about it on the main website, on the EPA's site. Yes. So I encountered this with a different Superfund site, which I looked at a week ahead of time and raised that concern. I didn't look at this one until this morning. But as you schedule these meetings, I would, as a request, strongly encourage that EPA put it on their main, they have a website for each Superfund site.
We normally do, guys, we normally do. So maybe it's just an oversight for this particular time, but those that have seen it on the web page, it's normally there. We have really good folks that do our social media posting, and kudos.
And I will let you know, Sarah, that San Jacinto is very unique in several ways. And one of those ways is that the website is not the standard. It looks the standard, but it is not the standard EPA website.
I realize it's not the standard EPA website. It has a lot more. But that would be helpful for this site and other sites as we move forward, because it was KUHF from yesterday and Thea's that really popped up if you were looking for information on the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. We gotta stay in order. No, just kidding. Okay, anyone here? Nope. Okay. All right, there you go.
Where's the toxins or the soil? Where is it going? Has it already been designated?
No, it's not. And that is partially because we have some preliminary waste characterization data, but as they excavate the material, it will be tested to determine its final destination. Currently, the bulk of the material, like the material from the south, is going to go to a regulated landfill that can receive, and it's kind of a misnomer, but they call it non-hazardous class 2 to class 1 industrial waste. but the landfills that receive it are under record permits that they have to manage the material. It'll go to a facility that's designed to contain and hold the material without releasing it to the environment. Now, there is a chance, like does it happen on the south, some of the data turned up that there was some material to do, I think it was high hydrocarbon concentrations, that it jumped a category and had to go to a different landfill. And so as part of the thing, the landfills are regulated, and it's in the landfill's best interest not to receive waste that they can't receive. And so they make stringent demands on the people who are depositing the material there to provide and justify the classification of the material and what the material is and contains and where it came from. I don't know if that answers your question exactly.
It does, but I've known for some of that soil to go to places that it shouldn't have, just in general, and I'm not like calling anyone out or anything else. It's just alarming that that happened and like the plan that happens in the future of where it's going. And one of the other pieces that happened was it was designated, there were some things that were designated to go to point X with a different site. And then when the point X realized what it was, it's like, no, that's not coming here. So I just wondered if there was an actual plan and a destination.
Well, that is in the plan, it's what's called the Waste Transportation Disposal Plan. We call it the TODEP. We love acronyms in the government. They're so much fun. And that plan details the process of how the waste will be handled, and it will include, when it's finalized, it will include the receiving facilities. So in that way, you'll know where it's going or it should go. I can't speak to the issues that you're talking about. The waste will be shipped out under manifests, which are required by the receiving facility. They're also required to be filed back with the government saying that this material went to this location, and then the facility that received it, there's like 4 copies of it. One goes to the generator, one goes to the EPA, one stays with the facility, and one goes to the TCEQ. And so those manifests are the proof that it went to where it's supposed to go. Now, I can't speak to what you're talking about.
Just as long as there's a plan, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll just pass the mic down. Now, is there anyone else that want to jot their question down that do not want to speak on the microphone? Let me know, and I'll give you cards. Okay.
Okay, Robert, it is nice to meet you in person. You know, I'm Jeannie Giamatti. Text.PM, I'm not the designer, but like I say, I'm the person who handles the project, is the intermediary. I've had projects before near Superfund sites. This isn't my first rodeo. What I anticipate, our bridge is going to have drill shafts. We're not doing piling because piling would have too much impacts of all those pipelines down there. And so we're going to do, and we're having a steel main bridge. It's, you know, that's what they chose. And then a lot up to it will be all these concrete bridges. And we're not just doing a main bridge. We're doing bridges most of the project because the soil system can't build, you know, the geology people say, you know, you can't get retaining walls on that kind of soil. So we're going to have a lot of drill shafts. They're going to go very deep, as you know. You probably know we kind of are moving the main a little bit south because you do have that nice caisson that's going to go 40 feet into our property, textile property. And so we could be getting close to the southern impoundment. I think you only went down 10 feet or something like that. So what I'm requesting is that of your document, I have to admit, TxDOT people, we're getting a lot of younger people, we're having the old timers retire, you know, so they only, and then we're huge. We're probably the hardest working district and nobody understands. But what I request is that you mentioned something about what is required if we're digging around, you know, well, what could be required if we're drilling in the area or something. I'd like if you could have your people send what portion of the documents you sent us, which is hundreds of pages. We don't have time to go through the whole thing. Give us, so I can turn it over to our expert hazmat people in Austin, environmental who will decide if we need a soil and groundwater plan? Do you?
You know, I understand completely, and so for what's happening on the north, right? On the south, we will identify, the areas we identify for materials.
I know the areas, but what I'm saying is you said you had requirements.
Well, there will be requirements. That's what the institutional control plan.
They are in draft form right now. I don't think anything is final.
Well, no, but by the time we let, what we have to do, well, before letting, obviously, we have to look and see if we need a soil and groundwater plan. So what I would like is if y'all could make it a little easier on us and give us that portion so our hazmat people can look at it.
What I suggest, Jeannie, is that go ahead and I will shoot you an email here like either tomorrow or Friday.
Don't rush.
Yeah, well, I want to get it at least it out, and so to you, and we can set something up initially with your folks, and we can kind of talk about what the requirements may look like or what you may want to do.
Okay, I'll have to
start that conversation.
We have one environmental coordinator right now, Tunisia Smith.
Yep.
But she's not the hazmat. They haven't even assigned it. I think that the lead one retired. But there's guys in Austin, not very many of them, but they haven't gotten involved yet. But we could meet Tunisia, myself, and to figure out how we go about getting the right information to the hazmat.
That goes back to what I was talking about, that for us and you, there's going to be coordination and talks.
True. I'm trying to document it. You and I, we're getting up there. So that who's ever in charge at the time can have the information they need.
And also, I can look into, I know that the TxDOT did prepare some plans, similar plans for some work they did on, down by the Texton Superfund site. So
146?
Yeah.
State Highway? Yeah, well, that was my project too.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
But with yours, you said there's this information and we'll need it.
It would be in the soil management plan for the southern development. That
I'd
still
like
has to be
finalized.
submitted. We have seen a very draft copy from the responsible
Would
party.
it be ready in a year?
I think so.
We need it made a little
it's
easy for us so we're not plowing through those hundred.
That'll be a question for her. I'll pass it on to her.
Okay, because that's what is something that we have to do due diligence, and we are a very busy district. I'm just saying that it's hard on them to try to dig it out. Yeah. And I look forward to working with you.
Oh, yeah, no, it's going to be exciting.
Like I say, I'm trying to get it set up in case, we're constant. We just got a new district engineer too.
Now, I remember you saying that your staff has turned over quite a bit. So.
Yes, we're getting younger folks. As you can see, I have 40 years. And, I won't be around forever. But I'm trying to get everything set up for a successful project. All right, I'm done. I did enough damage.
You can pass the line to your right. Okay. Any others?
Oh, I thought Katie was going to ask a question.
Thank you. I'll call you.
Okay.
So first I wanted to address Jeannie and TxDOT, and a little bit of that conversation that was just taking place would have been great during our smaller technical community advisory committee meeting with a few stakeholder groups. I can't speak on behalf of EPA, but I know many of the stakeholders that are a part of that would love for TxDOT to be there, to be able to have some of these more technical and in-depth conversations.
We've been meeting, we've had quite a few meetings directly EPA and TxDOT.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we can talk about that, see how we can, obviously we want to try and keep the meetings technical, but then we also do want to, like part of the thing we do in the CAC, we do try and update you all on the discussion we've been having. So
yeah, you did give us an update on their behalf. Yeah. Okay, so I do have a couple questions, as you suspect, but I'll ask some of them now, and we'll come back. I wanted to ask about ongoing sampling and monitoring. For years, there was quarterly testing, semi-annual testing, and you made a comment earlier when you answered one of the first questions you received, and it was something along the lines of ideally it's contained, or ideally there's not a release, something of that nature, which kind of made me feel like there might not be actual data or reliance on facts. Is there testing that is still taking place quarterly or periodically in the water and around the site?
We do not sample the water quality in the San Jacinto River. That's not our thing. Basically, we follow the plan that was put in place after the ticker cap was installed, and the primary concern there is the cap is the cap functioning the way it should work, and if it's not, all right. And when I say ideally, you can't speak 100% for everything.
Sure.
You have to have indicators or something that triggers the need to do something. And the maintenance and oversight, the OMM plan as it's called, is one of the triggers in that process. So.
Well, the PRPs for, years were doing quarterly inspections and sampling. And then for sure, after Harvey, after Imelda, after major storms, there was river water sampling that took place. So is there a protocol in place for at a minimum response in an event like the truck going in the river at the North Pits or a storm?
Well, there's a plan for the cap. Now, the truck going into the river, there's no plan for that.
Could be another one going in, you got a plan.
We can't.
But the plan that covers the O&M, the maintenance, and the inspection of the cap. If something was to happen to the cap, like the truck took a really serious drive out, right? And it was observed that the contractor does go out there and look, and if they observe that the cap looks disturbed or there's potential damage, then it would trigger a response. So, but like I said, I've been with the project for 3 years. I'd have to go back and if you want to send me that question, I can go back and look at it further.
Yeah, I used to get the periodic updates. They would be relayed to me under the previous Garys. So I wasn't sure if we got to this point in the process that maybe that was no longer taking place.
There's a schedule for inspection, nothing with the plan.
Okay. All right, thanks guys. I'll go ahead and pass the mic and be happy to ask more if I can have time.
Hello. My name is Gene Hennigan. Just a little background. I used to own an engineering company, and I was always a project management professional. Know a lot about scheduling. Who's driving this schedule? Because the people that are dying, I don't think had a word in it.
It's complicated, and and the only thing I can say about it is that the design that was the order that was entered in with the PRPs to produce the remedial design. That's a legal agreement that has a schedule and requirements in it. And then as we move forward into the implementation phase, just like on the southern impoundments, there will be a schedule in that document that has penalties and fines associated with them not meeting the schedule. So, but there's also, I really can't. It's hard to really vocalize kind of all the different things that go into getting from point A to point B.
Hey, I understand that. But y'all talked about this thing for 4 or 5 years. Now you're saying it's another 5 to 7 before you complete. I can build an entire refinery from the ground up in 3 years. This is just a hole in the ground, basically. I know that's a little complicated for y'all.
But it's a hole in the ground that's being put in place to contain hazardous material so that it doesn't get further released into the environment as it's removed. That's different than building a structure on a flat surface or building a clean structure to start with. Now, once your refinery is built, if you go in and tear that refinery down, you're not going to tear that refinery down in 3 years. It's going to take, I've torn refineries down. I've torn numerous refineries down. I've torn power plants down. I've torn chemical plants down. It takes a long time to do it safely and to stop and minimize the additional potential harm that occurs to the environment and the community. If you just go in there and lock this thing down in a year, nobody can guarantee that it's not going to cause a bigger problem than it's there now.
Every hurricane causes a bigger problem when it takes a third of it and throws it on the town again.
Well, the last bathymetric survey shows that the cap is still the same size as it was before.
Before what, Harvey?
Since before when the cap was installed. So we have not lost a third of the volume that's there.
I thought part of it already caved off in the river.
No, that's before the cap. The cap has been pretty consistently in place since it was installed. So you have to understand that there's, before actions were taken, the cap is just there to get us to the point that we can get rid of it. Otherwise, it's just sitting there waiting to do, what you guys are talking about. That's, that's the community wants it gone, right? That's why we took a hard enforcement stance. We got tired of this dragging out the process. We wanted action. If they're not going to do it, then the EPA, the EPA is like, well, this is what we're going to do. But we are legally we're legally bound to follow a certain set of path to get there. And so that's how we got to where we're at now. And that's hopefully what's going to get us to getting the work done.
Well, it still seems like an awful long time to get anything done.
And I just want to say something really quick on behalf of the Hennigans who live on the peninsula. They've seen, as of yesterday, a neighbor died. Their children died. A lot of their relatives, sisters, brothers, mothers, and fathers died in the last few years. This guy right here. So he's hurting along with all of us in here that have loved ones with cancer. My cat just died of a rare nasal cancer that they contracted here. It's enough with this sitting here. It needs to go. Not, oh, we've been talking about it for a year or two. We've been talking about it for 20 years. Seriously, I've been with Gil since '09, listening to the EPA meetings. And here we are in 2025. And his family's almost all gone. My husband's home dying right now too. It's aggravating. And I just have one question for the people that live in this town. How many of you know someone with cancer, or you have cancer, or your animals or children have cancer? Please raise your hand. There you go. Thank you, everyone, for raising your hand. We're pissed. And classifying it as a 1 or 2 non-hazardous? Talk to all the people with the dying families about non-hazardous. That's the deadliest chemical known to man right across the street here. And oh, it's a level 1 or 2 non-hazardous. We're just going to go put it in a landfill somewhere. Because it comes down to the money. You guys need to come up off the money and put it where it's safe, and it's not going to do this to another town. How many people have to die?
Amen. I don't know where the microphone is or whose turn it is, but I've waited as long as I can wait. That's all.
Mary too.
We moved here. My husband is sick. He has seizures, diabetic heart problems, and yes, he's dying. We have to go see a vascular surgeon. Things are happening. But nobody has mentioned that when we live in this area, that we're on a septic tank with an aerobic system that sprinkles this dioxin water all over our property 3 times a day, 2 to 3 times a day. And we're making our land a cluster, cancer clusters. But who's doing anything about it? Who's saying anything about it? It's in our drinking water. We're spraying it on our land. We're killing ourselves. We got to pay for that maintenance contract, $300 to $400 a year. So we're paying $300 or $400 a year to kill ourselves. I don't let my grandson run around in our yard because we're spraying it. He don't like it. He stays in the house most of the time. But am I supposed to let him go outside and play in this? Would you let your children run outside and play in this when you know there's dioxins in the water and it's just being sprayed on my yard because that's what the county requires me to do? I mean, somebody's not doing their due diligence.
The fact that well water is even allowed in this town, I can't even wrap my head around it.
All right, Ms. Dunn, let me just zip around here real quick. Well, thank you for that. We appreciate that.
Okay. I'm Carolyn Stone, Channelview resident, and with Channelview Health and Improvement Coalition, and regular attending helper with them, proudly. I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. In response to who's driving this train, it's the responsible parties, along with, in my opinion, the help with the EPA, because the responsible parties have repeatedly submitted designs they know will not work. They've drugged their feet. They've been allowed to do so. They have been told that the EPA will be taking over the project, yet y'all haven't taken over the project. In fact, they've resubmitted this design November 25th, which now is being reviewed, which will then they'll be able to comment on any discrepancies or anything that Jackie and them bring up or the community brings up. That'll delay it further by what was said here tonight. At minimum, this project cannot even begin before the end of 2027, which will coincide with TxDOT, conceivably. May even start after TxDOT starts. In the process, the problem continues. We're inundated with floods and other issues which affect the waste pits, spread it further into our lands, it's traveling further. We've got barges being moved in, which further transports the sediments and stuff to various different areas. The agreement that was made with the community regarding the area of concern is not being followed. All anybody's interested in testing are the known sites, the known 3 sites. When there's dredging being done, or unpermitted dredging being done, none of these environmental studies are done, none of the testing's done, all of it's being bypassed. And all of this is supposed to be being reviewed by TCEQ, EPA, and Army Corps of Engineers. Yet, it's not being done. So, we're expected to believe that our community will be protected by the EPA and TCEQ and the responsible parties. Yet, it has drug on for years, and as has been stated here tonight, we are getting sick, and many of us are dying. Our pets, the same. It's being spread further and further. And TxDOT, the community, since y'all have come to y'all, the design was brought for the bridge through the marine industry before it came to the community. Y'all designed the bridge and everything working with the marine companies, marine industries. Y'all didn't come to the community until after the fact and presented us the design. But with that being said, these recent meetings that we have had, the community has pointed out that it is our belief that the footprint of the new freeway will exceed into the southern impoundments and other areas, and we have requested that extra care be taken in core samplings. We have been witnessing a lot of core samplings being done along the freeway and along Market Street. But I have not noticed that your workers are wearing any protective gear when they're taking these samples. So your workers, although we've warned that they're working in a very contaminated area, are not wearing protective gear that I have noticed. So then I have to revisit the question about the site, contact water, non-contact water. And my question is how can you have any non-contact water at the site? Considering the site is in the middle of the river, it's continuously got floods coming over it, all kinds of conditions, bringing the dioxins and disturbing. They will be working there, they will be disturbing the soil and stuff. So anything coming from the heavens down onto there, by the virtual effect of just touching the ground, I don't see how it can be called non-contact water. So to me, everything, regardless, should be handled as if it is hazardous and contact water. And to Pam, I think what Pam was trying to get at was truck decontamination procedures. Is there any that's being mandated? Or are the trucks just going to be loaded up and then they're going to hit the road and drive through our communities and to all the communities along wherever this stuff is going to be disposed of? So that didn't seem to be a question that could be answered easily. It should have been said, oh no, everything will be decontaminated before it leaves the site. That was not the response that was given. And then, if the EPA is not sampling the river water, how can you know if contaminations are being released from the site?
How can you classify it?
So those are just a few of my concerns and things that seems to be repeated over and over again at every one of these meetings. We ask these questions and we're still being boondoggled, pushed to the side and said, oh, you know, we can't answer that. Well, at what point can you answer it? We're being affected by it daily, hourly, minute by minute. And we've waited
Decades.
yeah, decades. So it's nothing new to us, and it seems like y'all talk between all of y'all and have these conversations, but you're not having it with the CAC, and you're not having the conversations with the community, which we have knowledge. We are the ones who are literally putting our lives on the line for this project. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
My name is John Banks, and I'm wondering about the things that the other people don't know about. It was found 50 miles out in Galveston. Okay, they have the CCA has fishing tournaments out there. Does them people even know what they're fishing for? And they're putting oyster beds out there. Do them people even know what they're eating out of them oysters? And the game warden ought to be telling these people why they're not supposed to be eating these fish and the crabs and all the stuff out there. And the CCA is talking about the game wardens and stuff putting out money to put fingerlings, new fish in there to contract this dioxins to where they can grow up and be deadly to other people that don't know, that eat them fish. I've been out in my boat and I see shrimpers out there shrimping, and I know that they're got dioxins in shrimp. And oysters that they plant out there and they go and dig up, I know there's dioxins in them water filters. You know, so these people know why they're not supposed to eat these fish. You see these signs up everywhere, don't eat these kind of fish, don't eat these kind of crabs, and they don't say why. And the people are down there just fishing anyway, going towards Lynchburg Ferry and talking about the leaching field. There's one there in Lynchburg that's about 4 acres that they spray out 3 or 4 times a day. And I don't know if that's coming from the community or from the school that my son went to when he was a kid. I didn't even know nothing about this until 2013. I lived here since '86. You know, and I drink the water out of my 96-foot well. And now I got a 316-foot well, and it's still nasty water. You still can't drink.
And he lives right across from the site.
Right, I live less than a half a mile from that site. And we buy bottled drinking water now, which I hate because that plastic's going back into the water because they don't get rid of the plastics right. I should be able to drink my well water without worrying about dying from it. Yeah, and that's another thing, bathing in it, what's that doing to me? I've got places all over me that water gets into. What is that doing to me? You know, nobody's got answers to these questions. And the people that's out there fishing and eating them fish don't know what they're doing to their family. They ever had a sign up there saying, don't eat these fish because, you know, that's just the thing. Nobody knows. It seems like this is a big secret. It's been a big secret. I didn't know about it until, I guess, 2013. I was in the hospital and found out about it. You know, and another thing is they paid Texas $27 million, and they gave Baytown $9 million to go into their parks and stuff. Well, their parks and stuff are around the water. What's that doing to their kids? And how much is it going to cost us to get rid of them parks that they put around that water that's getting into the kids and stuff that's out there playing in the water? You know, it's not right. And I'd like to see something change about it before I die.
We're tired of
And that's
being
all I
nice.
got to say about that.
Tired of being nice.
Hi, I'm Christy. I'm with the Texas Health and Environment Alliance for the Sanderson River Coalition. I appreciate y'all coming out in this cold weather this evening. To piggyback off of what he had to say, Ms. Carolyn and I put out signs for this EPA meeting on Sunday, and as we were driving over the bridge, there was an actual John boat in the buoys, sitting on the impoundment. There are signs out there that say don't eat XYZ of the marine life out there, but there isn't a reason, like he said, why. Is there a way that we can get a sign out there that says, Superfund site, this can cause cancer, this can do this to the people that do eat it? We pass out fish consumption advisory and try to talk to the community members, because there are community members that do have to eat this species in order to sustain their life, their family's life. So is there a way that we can let them know, hey, you are sitting on top of a Superfund site. Your boat is literally sitting on an island of dioxin. Is there a way that we can enunciate that a little bit better versus, hey, don't eat this? Because a lot of the fishermen, fisherwomen, they don't know why they're not allowed to eat those species.
Do not play it.
And again, thank you and Happy New Year.
I think he needs to answer it, but I don't know.
Well, all I can say is that my specific role in this project is remediation of the site. That is the removal of the waste from the northern impoundment and then dealing with the sand separation area. All these other issues that you folks are talking about, I can't speak to those. That's not my job as the RPM for the site, is to get rid of the waste in the northern impoundment.
Well, how about classifying it as it is, which is the deadliest chemical known to man, and putting it where it belongs properly instead of in a class 1 or 2 non-hazardous? That blows my mind. If you're going to do it right and classify it as hazardous. It's not non-hazardous. One little grain of that is deadly.
So basically, what we've said about our septic system out here fell on your deaf ears because you're.
No, I'm not ignoring what you all are saying. I'm not ignoring what you all are saying. I'm listening to it.
No, that's what he's saying. That's exactly what he said.
No, I'm just saying I can't speak to your problem because it is not my authority to do that.
And you don't take it anywhere else.
Trust me, my manager's sitting right here.
Hey guys, it's not that it's not going to be shared with other stakeholders or other entities that can do something about it. I think what Robert is saying is that EPA cannot address it, but it's not that it's not going to be shared with others to address it. It will be, because you see, I'm taking notes, Chris is taking
You
notes.
have provided contact information. I mean, I can take notes, and my notes are criminal notes, but you have the information. If y'all can provide us information, name, location, problem, we'll try to identify who can do the best to address that.
And we have done that where we've had complaints from other folks in the community who brought things to our attention. They provided us with their contact information, the information that they're concerned about, and we moved it on to the appropriate folks within either our agency or other agencies.
DEQ office, there's health department, there's various agencies that deal with the environment, not just the EPA. And I appreciate your information. You can provide us to us, you know.
I'm not going to comment. I can't speak to them, and I don't want to speak to them because I don't want to demean what you're experiencing. I'm listening, and I feel like if I try and justify it based off of what I'm doing here, I'm demeaning what you're talking about. You know, I'm trying to listen to you, and I'm not trying to argue with you about what you're saying, but I'm just trying to let you know that if you're looking for answers from me, unfortunately, I cannot personally give you that answer. But we are listening, and we will take that back. But as Chris says, you know, contact us. Let us know. I mean, we're here.
Please contact us. Contact the local health department, the local state agency. You know, sites to talk about the fishing. You know, these are problems we deal with. But they're not new to us. You know, sites where we have fishing advisory, we put signs up, it's turned down. You go out and say, well, how can we let people know not to eat the fish? We constantly deal with that issue, not just here in Texas, but across the country. You know, awareness is key. Awareness, you gotta know problems that you deal with, right? So you're making us aware. Thank you. Let's give us more information that we can work with.
Protect us. Protect us. Environmental Protection Agency.
We removed over a million, you know, we talked about what was done last year for the southern empowerment. We're not done. We never said we're done. We're still working it. It takes a while. And I'm sorry it takes so long. I wish we could go.
But guys, just always remember, and I know it's frustrating, but we are working together. We can't do it alone, we do it with the community. But before we move on, there's a gentleman in the back that wants to ask a question, and then after he asks his question, and then we'll go back and readdress.
Hello, my name is Frank Brown. And I think I think my question's already been answered, but I kind of want to piggyback off the question. The question was about the sampling of the soil all along the IT corridor. And so my question is, once you get that data, how will we as a community know where the red flags are, or where the hot spots are all along the IT?
Okay, we don't know that when we did the work on the southern impoundment, there's a lot of work that went into identifying where the waste was located. We investigated, we continue to investigate it until we find the edge of it. And that's where we take the action. So to say that these other areas that are outside the areas that we've identified, we have no information to indicate that that's the case. We use this significant amount of investigative work to identify where the waste is located, and that's when we address it. We find the edge of that, and we stop at the edge. We don't continue to go on and on and on and on. If there's something to indicate that we need to look further, then we can.
Yeah, why don't you go check that park that's right down the street on Market?
The what?
The public park.
The name of the park?
Yes.
River Terrace
Yeah,
Park.
somebody that lives closer might be able to tell you.
River
Terrace Park on Market Street?
Yeah.
Was there an action that occurred there that made you think that that soil is impacted? Is there something that you saw or aware of?
It's flooded
Well,
regularly.
it's just like Jackie right here. She asked a while ago about testing. No testing is being done. How do we know how far the dolphin's going down into the bay?
We've done it. We've done thousands of sampling of sediment.
Your meeting's about over. Your meeting is about over. And let me tell you something. All of you need to applaud yourself because this doesn't happen in other places of Houston. Okay? You guys have been diligent and you've gotten them out here. And you've got the EPA that has designated your site a Superfund site. This doesn't happen in Houston. I've been involved in lots of industries and lots of chemical plants and all kinds of pollution. I have a blog that's 1,200 lines long about being in Baytown. And we contact the EPA, we do other things, but we don't have a community that comes comes out and supports us, they don't want to say anything. You guys have stood together, and you have the EPA here, and you have a designated Superfund site, and you have people that are taking notes. Communicate with them. Tell them about the park and all these other things. And copy other people on your email, and they will respond. I promise you, they will respond. So it's not that you don't have valid concerns still, but you really need to give yourself a really big round of applause for as much as you've done, and as far as this has come. This is very impressive. So it wasn't enough, but I'm hoping it will.
Well, guys, and again, yes, it takes a long time, and when we identify areas, and again, correct me here if I'm wrong, because by no means am I technical, but you mentioned the River Terrace Park, and from my understanding, in order for EPA to go to these areas that you guys are mentioning, there has to be a reason for us to be able to go out and actually do sampling or testing. So is it fair to ask how we identify the areas that we
There's a process for identifying samples. Areas to be investigated under site assessment. A community can petition EPA to evaluate an area.
Okay, guys, don't listen.
I mean, as part of the, oh, okay. As part of the Superfund site assessment process, I used to manage that program before I came back to the cleanup process. But there's a form you can submit to EPA, say, we're concerned about this park, this area that people are fishing, let us know why, let us know that you're impacted, and then we're required to evaluate that under the site assessment process. So we need something to go on, you know. I'm not aware of the things y'all mentioned, but.
Hey, you know,
Okay, let's do this, guys. Let's do this. Let's get some order, first of all. Let's get some order. We can't hear because there's so many conversations going on. So let's get some order. We're going to go to the gentleman in here in the gray jacket, and then we're going to go to Jackie, and then we're going to try to kind of wrap up and get some identification on the next steps. Is that okay with everybody? Can we do that?
We need more time.
Okay. We need more time. You're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. So we will work on that as well. Okay, so the young man here, and then we'll go to Jackie, and then after Jackie, we're going to go back to Robert and try and wrap up for the next steps. Okay? All right, thank you.
You actually gave me the justification a minute ago when you said you only go as far as you know there's contamination. And all I was saying is kind of keying on the comment they made about all these parks and stuff. Well, that's just a little past what you're thinking is the limits. Why not have in your procedure, let's step over those limits a little bit, just as standard procedure to make sure that's the actual limit. Especially when it's a public park where you've got a lot of people coming that close to a designated site.
I think Chris talked about it earlier. I mean, our authority to do work has to be driven by something. We as a government agency cannot just go out and go across people's property and sample without due cause. You know, right?
We would all welcome it right now if you just come out and sample. It doesn't bother us.
But, you know,
We'd like to know what's out
when the
there.
process starts, we identify what we're doing, we move in steps. But we also respond to the community in terms of what they say. Like, if it's like the community member brings a concern to us, we act on it, but, you know, once again, you know, you all live here. This is your community. You know, we need you to be partners with us to let us know these things. You know, right? And that's the Victoria here who wrote the question. I'm not going to get to your question, but I have your contact info, so I'll respond to it. But I mean, that gets into things like this, you know, right here. It's a question. It's information somebody asked for an answer. They give us the contact information. They've given us information. You know, right? It gives us something to go on so that we're just not blindly casting around or relying, as you like to say, relying on the PRPs to drive that bus. Right? We don't want, you know, you guys live here. It's your community. Right? And I understand what everybody's been saying. I mean, I'm hearing you. You know, right? But we need that information, you know, to come to us in a manner that we can actually encompass it and use it to get some meaningful results for it.
All right, thank you, Robert. Not to put a rush on, but I promised Jackie that we would go with another question here, so. Okay, Jackie, you have the floor.
Thank you, Janetta.
Can we just interrupt real quick?
I was going to say, y'all brought a lot of issues tonight that we're not aware of everything, but maybe we can do better at the next meeting as far as identifying, how do you bring an issue to EPA? How does that work? There's a form you send in. What form do I send in? Who do I send it to? Maybe that's part of our next meeting, that we can say, we'll have someone from the site assessment come out here and say, if you have a concern with the park, with the fishing area, with all these issues y'all are bringing up, how do I forward that information to the EPA so that we can do something, at least evaluate it? So we can bring that here. I mean, it's not us, it's not you, Robert, or Danetta, but there's a process in EPA to bring issues to us that we're not aware of. The parks, the fishing, the septic systems. You know, we need to have awareness. We didn't know about these things. Now we have awareness. How best do we capture that information and go from there?
Test the fish out in the bay.
Well, we have sites that are bays. We have a Superfund site that's a bay that has mercury in it. You know, we deal with those. But how do we become aware of it? Somebody let us know about it, and then we went out and investigated it. We have to have awareness, and we need to know.
Thank you. At the next meeting, could you bring the form along with instructions on how to submit it?
That's my intent.
All right, thank you, Ms. Stone. Okay, Jackie.
My question almost feels out of place now, but it's relevant because I know there are a lot of guys here who care about this, and I've been asked this and have not been able to get them an adequate response. Y'all know this is a community of oil and gas industry, barge industry, got engineers, PMs, environmental folks, so they care about the technical. And one question I've gotten a lot is how the water will be pumped out of the site. People are very interested in like what that process actually looks like. And as we experience floods and freezes and significant power outages, will whatever the pump system looks like be able to work if we lose power?
So as the design stands right now, as you've all noticed in the design, it doesn't show where the tanks are going to be located, right? It doesn't show how the system's going to be exactly laid out. And that's one of the things we talked about that's going to still evolve as this process evolves, right? So, you know, how the water gets moved from the containment to where the treatment system is, how the water goes from the treatment system to the storage system, and then how it goes from the storage system to where it's discharged at, right? That still has to be developed as part of the thing. The thing is that the treatment system works. We've seen that on the south. It's been demonstrated, right? We have a procedure to test the water as it's treated, the contact water as it's treated before it's discharged. So we know that that process works. We have data that shows that it works. How those pieces fit together, that's still that gets into like almost the same thing we've been talking about with TxDOT is there's going to be some coordination because obviously, there's places that you may want to put the system that are going to have to, we're going to have to coordinate with TxDOT on whether or not how that works. And then as that process happens, so if they, then those measures that you're asking about will have to be looked at and put into the design, and then that will come back to us as the contractor makes those decisions and how they're going to do that. And then we submit it out, we put it up on the website, everybody gets to look at it, right? And that, too, for the folks that have comments, it gets put up on the website. You have a very active community group in Thea, and I don't want to butcher your acronym, ma'am. I work for the government. It's like so. But talk to your community representatives, your group members, and let them know so that they can wrap your issues into the comments that they give to us. Yeah, and then too, you're more than welcome. You have my contact information. Right? If you have a concern, you're looking at the design, and you have a concern, email me that concern. We look at everything. We don't discredit anybody's experience, anybody's input, right?
And guys, just remember, in wrapping up, every voice is important. We can't do it alone, we do it together. And a lot of issues that you brought up, no, EPA cannot address it, but we can work with others, other stakeholders, the state, the health department, the DOT, and all those folks, to get it done, to get it addressed. We're not going to be able to answer or respond to all the questions that you have because it's outside of EPA's, I don't like to say this word, but it's outside of EPA's box. But we can work together to get some answers for you because all of your concerns are definitely priority, and we hear you. we hear you, and my heart bleeds for it, because I've got issues myself that I deal with. So I'm there. I have health issues of my own, okay? So with that, we're gonna try and wrap up, and I hear you saying you need more time, and if you guys can let us know what time is appropriate, we can try to adhere to that. We try to make sure that we're accommodating the working folks to do a 6 o'clock meeting. If we need to do a 5:30 meeting, let us know that. If we need to bump it earlier, let us know that.
And also too, now that we are in a very path forward process, we're making traction. I mean, I feel it would be appropriate for us to meet with the community more often.
Yeah, we can have more meetings.
You know, and we will bring some of these people who can help answer your questions or help direct you to some of the resources or how to get that information to us. But once again, we need you all to ask those questions to us, you know, so that we can bring those people. We can bring people who can answer your question or find the best one. Obviously, you know, like I said, when I talked about I'm just about the remedial design, I'm an implementation specialist. That's what I do, right? So I'm trying to get this moved along, but there's other people who handle the questions that you're asking. I just don't want to put words in their mouth and make you promises that I'm writing a check on somebody else's bank account. You know, right?
Okay, guys, again, we're gonna wrap up, and thank you so much for coming out. We know it is a place for you here, and we do appreciate it. But thank you. Thank you.